Water 10. Queen's first big hit was a complete accident. Before Bohemian Rhapsody made them icons, Queen struggled to even get radio time. In 1974, their song 7 Seas of Rye was supposed to be just an instrumental filler. It wasn't even finished when the band first recorded it. But fate stepped in when BBC radio DJ Kenny Everett accidentally played the unfinished track during a broadcast, and listeners went wild. The station was flooded with calls asking, "Who are these guys?" Queen raced back to the studio, finished the song in a hurry, and released it as their first hit single. That one spontaneous moment launched their career. What's fascinating is that 7 Seas of Rye already had all the elements of classic Queen: complex piano runs, layered harmonies, and that sense of otherworldly drama. Freddie Mercury, who had written the song, said it was based on a fantasy world he created as a child. He imagined a mythical kingdom called Rye, where he was king. It was his personal escape from the dullness of real life. The fact that their breakthrough came from Freddie's imaginary world tells you everything about Queen. They turned fantasy into music, and music into magic. From there, the band exploded onto the British rock scene. But their success wasn't instant or easy. Before fame, they'd been rejected by multiple record labels. Brian May was studying astrophysics, Roger Taylor was working in a clothing stall, and John Deacon was an electronics student who built his own amplifiers. They weren't T-rock royalty yet, but they had the grit of a garage band and the vision of a symphony. And when 7 Seas of Rye hit the charts, they finally knew they had something the world hadn't seen before. Vicar 9. Bohemian Rhapsody was originally considered too weird for radio today. Bohemian Rhapsody is practically sacred, a song that defines not only Queen but an entire era of music. But when it first came out in 1975, record executives thought it was a disaster. At nearly 6 minutes long, it broke every rule of radio programming. It had no chorus, no clear genre, and switched between rock, opera, and ballad like musical time travel. When Freddie Mercury first played the demo for the label, one executive reportedly said, "Freddie, no one will ever play this on the radio." But Mercury was never one to play by anyone's rules. He insisted on releasing it exactly as it was. And he had a secret weapon: Kenny Everett again. Freddie handed the DJ a copy of the record with a sly grin and told him, "You can't play this on air." Everett, of course, did exactly the opposite, playing snippets all weekend on his show. People went crazy trying to buy the song, but it wasn't even officially released yet. By the time it hit stores, demand was so high that Bohemian Rhapsody shot straight to #1 and stayed there for 9 weeks. The song was revolutionary not just in length, but in structure. Freddie used 180 separate overdubs to create the operatic vocal layers. There was no digital tech. Everything was done on analog tape. The band literally wore out the tape from so much re-recording. Brian May said the song was like assembling a cathedral of sound brick by brick. And it worked. Bohemian Rhapsody went on to become one of the best-selling singles of all time, selling over 6 million copies in the UK alone. It re-entered the charts in 1991 after Freddie's death, then again in 1992 when the movie Wayne's World introduced it to a new generation. The headbanging car scene from that film turned the track into an anthem for teenagers who weren't even born when it was first released. What makes it timeless is its mystery. Nobody knows exactly what the lyrics mean. Freddie never explained them. Was it about guilt, religion, love, or death? Every theory has been debated endlessly. But maybe that's the point. As Mercury once said, "It's one of those songs that has a fantasy feel about it. I think people should just listen to it, think about it, and then make up their own minds as to what it says to them." And that's the essence of Queen's genius. They never told you what to think. They invited you into their world and let you feel it for yourself. 8. Brian May built his guitar from a fireplace before Queen filled stadiums. Brian May was a broke student who couldn't afford a guitar that met his standards. Instead of buying one, he decided to build it by hand. Together with his father, Harold May, an electrical engineer, he crafted what would become one of the most iconic instruments in rock history, the Hugh Red Special. But this wasn't any ordinary DIY project. The neck of the guitar was carved from a 100-year-old piece of wood taken from a fireplace mantel. The body was made from blockboard covered in mahogany veneer. And the tremolo arm? That was a repurposed piece of an old bicycle. The fret markers were hand-cut from mother-of-pearl buttons. Even the pickups were wound by hand using sewing machine bobbins. Brian A.'s goal wasn't just to save money. He wanted a guitar that could sing like a human voice. He engineered the Red Special to create feedback harmonies and sustain notes in ways no other guitar could. The sound you hear in songs like Brighton Rock, Killer Queen, and We Will Rock You isn't T from an expensive Gibson or Fender. It is from a fireplace and bicycle parts. The Red Special became Brian's signature weapon. It survived countless tours, weathered sweat, beer, and even pyrotechnics. He still plays it today, often with the same sixpence coin he's used as a pick since the 1970s because, as he said, plastic picks just don't have the bite. It's poetic when you think about it. A physicist who built a rock guitar using physics. Brian later earned a Ph.D. in astrophysics and worked with NASA on the New Horizons mission to Pluto. From fireplace wood to space exploration, his life is proof that curiosity and creativity can coexist perfectly. Number 7. Freddie Mercury's stage persona was inspired by opera and kabuki. When Freddie Mercury stepped on stage, he wasn't just singing, he was performing a full-scale opera of his own. Every gesture, every outfit, every flick of the microphone stand was deliberate, choreographed to turn music into theater. What few people know is that Freddie A.'s inspiration came from an unusual mix of sources: classical opera and Japanese kabuki theater. Mercury was deeply fascinated by grand, larger-than-life performance styles. He loved how opera singers used their voices as instruments of emotion and how kabuki actors transformed their bodies into living art. You can see this fusion in his flamboyant movements, his exaggerated facial expressions, and his iconic outfits: tight white jumpsuits, flowing capes, and military jackets. He wasn't just a singer, he was a character, a myth come alive. One of his closest friends, opera soprano Montserrat Caballé, once said, "Freddie had the soul of a tenor." Their 1988 collaboration on the album Barcelona was Mercury's dream come true, mixing rock with opera in a way no one had dared before. When the title track played at the 1992 Olympic Games in Barcelona, it was a moment that transcended genres and borders. Freddie's performance style also broke barriers of masculinity in rock music. In an era dominated by rugged, leather-clad frontmen, he brought in camp aesthetics, ballet-inspired movements, and unapologetic flair. Some critics mocked it, but audiences adored it. He turned vulnerability into power and artifice into authenticity. His iconic Live Aid performance in 1985, often voted the greatest live show in history, was the ultimate embodiment of that fusion. Dressed simply in a white tank top and jeans, Mercury commanded the attention of over 70,000 people in Wembley Stadium and 1 billion more watching around the world. With just a microphone and his voice, he transformed that crowd into one giant choir. It wasn't about spectacle anymore. It was pure human connection. Behind that confidence, though, Freddie was surprisingly private. Off stage, he was shy, polite, and thoughtful, preferring the company of close friends and his cats. But once the spotlight hit, he became larger than life. "I'm not going to be a rock star," he once said. "I'm going to be a legend." And he was right. Freddie Ice-T's ability to draw from multiple artistic traditions and fuse them into something uniquely his own made Queen far more than a rock band. They were cultural shapeshifters, turning every concert into an opera, every song into a story, and every moment into history. Number 6. Queen's South American tour made rock history. In the early 1980s, when most Western bands were too cautious or too afraid to perform in politically unstable countries, Queen did something no one else dared. They went to South America. It wasn't a small tour, either. It was a full-scale musical invasion that broke every record imaginable. In 1981, Queen became the first major rock band to play massive stadium shows across Argentina and Brazil, countries that were under military dictatorships at the time. Political tensions were sky-high, but fans didn't care. When Queen arrived in Buenos Aires, the airport was flooded with tens of thousands of screaming fans. Their concerts attracted up to 300,000 people each night, numbers no one thought possible outside of the United States or Europe. These shows were more than concerts. They were moments of liberation. For many South Americans living under censorship and fear, Queen's music represented freedom. People sang, "We are the champions," with tears in their eyes. Brian May later said, "You could feel it. We weren't just performing. We were giving them a voice." But the logistics were a nightmare. Equipment had to be smuggled through customs, power grids overloaded, and local authorities didn't know how to handle crowds that big. Yet Queen pulled it off with military precision. Freddie Mercury, ever the showman, learned a few phrases in Spanish and Portuguese just to connect better with his audiences. When he shouted, "Hola, Buenos Aires," the roar of the crowd was so loud it shook the cameras. That tour changed the music industry. After Queen's success, bands like the Rolling Stones and U2 realized South America was an a risk. It was the future of global rock. But Queen got there first, proving that music could cross borders even when politics couldn't. Number 5. Another one bites the dust. Almost didn't happen. One of Queen's biggest hits was nearly tossed aside. In 1980, bassist John Deacon brought a new song to the band's recording session. It had a funky, disco-inspired bass line, completely different from Queen's usual operatic rock sound. The song was called "Another One Bites the Dust." At first, the rest of the band wasn't sure. Freddie liked it, but Roger Taylor and Brian May thought it was too dancey. Rock bands were supposed to stay far away from disco back then, especially after the infamous Disco Demolition Night in the U.S., but Freddie pushed for it, saying, "Let's record it. I can already hear people dancing to it." When they finished the track, they didn't even plan to release it as a single. It was Michael Jackson, yes, that Michael Jackson, who convinced them. After attending one of Queen's shows, he went backstage and told them, "You'd be crazy not to release Another One Bites the Dust. That's a hit." Freddie took the King of Pop's advice, and the rest is history. The song became Queen's biggest US hit, topping the Billboard Hot 100 for 3 weeks and selling over 7 million copies. It bridged the gap between rock and funk, showing how versatile Queen really was. Suddenly, clubs that usually played disco were spinning Queen records. Even hip-hop DJs began sampling it, and to this day, it's one of the most remixed rock songs ever. What's amazing is how simple it is. No flashy guitar solos, no operatic harmonies, just groove and attitude. John Deacon played almost every instrument on the track himself: bass, guitars, drums, and keyboards. It's a masterpiece of restraint, something rare for Queen. The song's success also opened new doors for the band. It made them one of the few rock groups embraced by black radio stations in America, an unheard-of achievement at the time. Another One Bites the Dust. Wasn't he just a hit? It was a cultural crossover that expanded what rock music could be. And as for John Deacon, the quiet genius who wrote it? He rarely spoke in interviews, but his fingerprints are on many of Queen's biggest hits, from "You're My Best Friend" to "I Want to Break Free." Freddie once joked, "John doesn't say much, but when he does, it's worth millions." 4. Queen's "I Want to Break Free" caused global controversy. In 1984, Queen released one of their catchiest and most misunderstood songs, "I Want to Break Free." It was meant to be a light-hearted anthem about liberation, but what made it unforgettable was its music video. In it, the band appeared dressed as British housewives in drag, Freddie Mercury vacuuming in a miniskirt and wig, Brian May in pink curlers, Roger Taylor as a schoolgirl, and John Deacon as a prim grandmother. It was a playful parody of the British soap opera Coronation Street, a wink at the mundanity of everyday life. In the UK, fans got the joke instantly. It was cheeky, fun, and perfectly in line with Britain's irreverent humor. But across the Atlantic, the reaction was very different. American television networks, especially MTV, refused to air the video. Many viewers in the conservative 1980s South didn't he could understand the context and thought Queen was making a political statement about gender or sexuality. The backlash was so severe that it nearly derailed the band's U.S. career. Freddie Mercury, who was often misunderstood by the press, didn't care. He stood by the art. "It was just a laugh," he said, "but people take everything so seriously." Ironically, the song itself wasn't even written by him. It was John Deacon's creation, inspired by the desire for personal freedom in relationships. In other parts of the world, however, the song became an anthem for liberation. During the apartheid era in South Africa, "I Want to Break Free" was adopted by anti-apartheid activists as a song of resistance. In Latin America, it was sung at protests demanding democracy. What started as a tongue-in-cheek video became a global symbol of rebellion. And the irony: the band performed the song live to over 300,000 fans in Rio de Janeiro just a year later, most of them singing every word. Freddie strutted across the stage in leather pants, waving the microphone stand like a scepter, and the crowd screamed the chorus back to him in unison. It was banned in one country and celebrated in another, but in true Queen fashion, it never stopped being powerful. Number 3. Queen played a private show for the real royal family. While Queen were known for being the kings of rock, few fans realized they once performed for actual royalty. In 1980, Queen were invited to play at a private event attended by Prince Charles and Princess Diana. The story of that night has since become legendary, not because of the music, but because of a mischievous act of kindness by Freddie Mercury himself. According to Cleo Rocos, a friend of both Freddie and Princess Diana, the princess had once expressed that she envied how freely Freddie lived his life. She longed to escape her royal duties, even just for a moment. So Freddie, ever the prankster, came up with an outrageous plan. One night he disguised Princess Diana in sunglasses, a leather jacket, and a cap, and snuck her into the Royal Vauxhall Tavern, a famous London gay bar. No one recognized her. She reportedly ordered a white wine and watched drag performances with Freddie and friends, laughing the entire time. While this story happened outside the concert setting, it perfectly illustrates the genuine friendship Freddie had with Diana, and the way his charm transcended class and status. At the private event, the band performed a toned-down set, but Freddie still couldn't resist teasing the royals. When Prince Charles arrived, Freddie reportedly quipped, "So, this is what one wears when one's off duty," causing the entire room to burst out laughing. Despite their rebellious image, Queen were respected by the British establishment. In 1990, the band received the Brit Award for Outstanding Contribution to British Music, and Brian May was later knighted by Queen Elizabeth II herself in 2005 for his services to music and charity. Roger Taylor received the same honor in 2020. It's poetic that the band named Queen, once seen as outrageous and subversive, ended up officially honored by the actual Queen of England. That contrast between rebellion and respectability is what made them timeless. They could play for 500,000 fans in Rio one week and have tea with royalty the next. It was that range, that unpredictability, that made Queen not just a rock band, but a cultural bridge between worlds that rarely mixed. Freddie once said, "I always knew I was a star, and now the rest of the world seems to agree with me." The truth was, he didn't just become a star, he helped redefine what being one meant. Number 2. Freddie Mercury's Final Days and the band's Last Promise. By the late 1980s, whispers began to circulate about Freddie Mercury's health. He was visibly thinner, avoiding press events, and rumors of AIDS spread relentlessly. But inside the band, a sacred pact formed. They would protect Freddie's privacy until the end. Only his closest circle knew the truth, and the other band members, Brian May, Roger Taylor, and John Deacon, refused to let anyone exploit it. Even as his health deteriorated, Freddie refused to stop recording. The sessions for Innuendo, 1991, were grueling. He would arrive at the studio, pale and weak, but still demanding multiple takes until he got every note right. "I'll keep working till I drop," he told his producer. "I won't let it beat me." On the haunting ballad, "These Are the Days of Our Lives," you can hear it. The fragile but fearless tone of a man who knew his time was short. Just one day before he passed away, Freddie released a public statement confirming his illness. Following enormous conjecture in the press, it read, "I wish to confirm that I have been tested HIV positive and have AIDS. I felt it correct to keep this information private to protect the privacy of those around me." Less than 24 hours later, on November 24, 1991, he died peacefully at his home in Kensington, surrounded by loved ones. The world mourned deeply. Outside his house, fans left mountains of flowers stretching for blocks. But Freddie's legacy didn't end there. The band made a promise. Queen would continue to honor him not with sadness, but with sound. In 1992, the Freddie Mercury tribute concert at Wembley Stadium brought together Elton John, David Bowie, Metallica, and George Michael, uniting rock legends for one purpose: to celebrate a man who taught the world how to live unapologetically. That concert also raised millions for the Mercury Phoenix Trust, an AIDS charity founded by the band. It became a global force for education and prevention, ensuring that Freddie's death would help save countless lives. His final act of courage wasn't just facing death, it was turning tragedy into change. Number 1. Queen's music lives forever, even in space. Decades after Freddie's passing, Queen's influence has only grown stronger. Their songs are woven into the fabric of global culture, from sports arenas blasting "We Will Rock You" to Bohemian Rhapsody becoming a karaoke rite of passage. But perhaps the most astonishing tribute came from the stars themselves, literally. In 2019, NASA named an asteroid 17473 Freddie Mercury in honor of his 70th birthday, recognizing his lifelong fascination with space. Remember, Brian May, the band's guitarist, has a PhD in astrophysics and even worked with NASA on the New Horizons mission to Pluto. When the probe reached the distant dwarf planet, NASA used Queen's music in the official celebration video. It's poetic, Freddie's voice echoing through the cosmos. And that's not all. The 2018 film Bohemian Rhapsody, starring Rami Malek, reintroduced Queen to a new generation. It grossed over $900 million worldwide, making it the highest-grossing musical biopic of all time. Malek's performance earned him an Oscar, but more importantly, it reignited the world's love for Queen's music. After the movie, Queen's Spotify streams skyrocketed by over 300%, proving their songs are timeless. Today, Brian May and Roger Taylor continue to tour with Adam Lambert, a modern powerhouse who honors Freddie's legacy while adding his own voice. Fans old and young pack stadiums singing "Don't Stop Me Now," like a promise to keep the music alive. And somewhere you can imagine Freddie smiling, microphone in hand, striking that final pose as the crowd roars his name. From homemade guitars to royal stages, from global scandals to cosmic immortality, Queen's story isn't just about a band. It's about how art, courage, and passion can outlive everything else. Their music reminds us that life, like Freddie once said, is kind of ridiculous, but in the most beautiful way. So the next time you hear that legendary piano intro, is this the real life? Is this just fantasy? Remember, it's both. That's the magic of Queen. They blurred the line between dream and reality, leaving behind songs that never truly end. If you like this video, don't forget to hit like and share to spread the story of Queen's incredible legacy. Subscribe to our channel for more untold stories behind the greatest legends in music history. Tap Join to support the channel and unlock exclusive content, and if you'd like to go the extra mile, use the Super Thanks button below. Every bit of support helps us keep celebrating the icons who changed the world one song at a time.